What's happening in the canine industry? For all the latest news, views, and expert opinions, stay right here for the Canine Paradigm. You'll hear from industry leaders, experts, doyens of the industry, learned colleagues, movers and shakers, and the odd randy guest. Get the latest insights and expert advice from both here and abroad from the people in the know. Now, here are your hosts, Glenn Cook and Pat Stewart. And I'm Lofty Fulton, and I'm out of here.
Hey, Glenn, I reckon it's time for a new ad.
Do you reckon? We just went 14 months with the old one.
We don't even have sponsors anymore, so it probably was a good thing to take it down.
I think they just got so sick of it.
Yeah. So we've decided to no longer take sponsors on the show. The main reason being it comes with a level of admin that we're just not prepared to do.
Yes.
And we want to bring you good dog training information. So there's really only two things that we're interested in telling you about before you come into the show. First one being Canine Paradigm. Glenn, hit us with the details.
Thousands of customers, mainly in Australia and in the USA. We'd love to get in other places around the world, which I think will be on the list. We've got 5-star reviews to the galore. We've had skeptics, people who just don't believe products such as Canine Paradigm can do anything for their dogs. They've tried it, they've come back and they've said it works, it's made a massive change, or it's made a mild change, or it's made a change. That was one of the things Narelle was always working towards. She makes sure she does the science. She likes to peer review everything she's trying to do as much as possible. These things aren't just done by chance. She has done a lot of work, a lot of prep getting it to where it is. Extremely proud of her for all the effort that she's put behind it. Not just because she's my wife, not just because it's our business or her business, but because it works and it's done what it says it's going to do, and it's at such a great level as well. So if you're looking for something to improve the health and well-being of your dogs, you can't go past Canine Paradigm. Check it out online, caninesurgicals.com.au.
I love it. I, this year, am changing the way that I teach. I am an educator. It's what I love to do, and I've been trying to find the best way to do that. And in 2026, I'm launching a subscription service. In the past, people have had to buy my courses. You own them outright or you own them for a period. And that has been great, except that it does cut some people out because of the high price point that they can't get in on, where a subscription service allows people to come in. So if you want to check out what I'm doing this year, there's a ton of really high quality information, as well as community forums, live calls, and all that kind of stuff within the Serious Dog Business community that I've launched. There'll be links in the show notes, or you can jump onto the school platform and search Serious Dog Business. You'll find me there.
Let's just remind people that if they do want to support our show, they can head over to Patreon. We always do a wrap up at the end of the show, but Patreon keeps the lights on. If you want to support us, this is the only financial way that the Canine Paradigm gets a cash influx. Our government takes half of it, being in Australia. That's what they like to do. Nonetheless, we have exceedingly appreciated your support. People like Buffhead, the Sugar Mama, massive shout out to them because they were huge supporters of the show. And also, as I've said in my one-man band show that I did just before this, George Kittredge, loving memory of you as well. Thanks for your patronage as well.
All right, let's do it. Welcome back to the Canine Paradigm. I'm your host, Pat Stewart. I'm joined today by my co-host, Glenn Cook.
Welcome back, sir. Welcome back, friends, once again.
How are you?
Been better.
You've done yourself a mischief. Tell the audience quickly what happened.
Oh, man. It's crazy. I was down in Sydney doing business things, being a businessman, doing dog business.
It's business.
I was doing that.
It's business time. I love that show. It's one of the best shows ever.
I haven't seen it. What are you talking about?
Flight of the Conchords. It's,
yes.
They sing that song. It's business. All right, carry on before I keep singing.
So I was doing that business in Sydney and I was away for a couple of days. Narelle rings me and says, oh, guess what? I'm thinking, all right, something's happened. I said, all right, tell me what's going on. She goes, oh, I was out toileting the dogs and I misplaced on the step. And I rolled my ankle and she said, and it hurt. I then just went about my business and my foot was giving me a bit of trouble. And she said the next day I got up and it was just black and swollen and I'm thinking I've got to go to the doctors. And I said, yeah, that doesn't sound good. So she's shot off to the doctors up at Singleton. They've got her in, x-rayed her and they said, yeah, you've got 2 good fractures in your foot. You're going to be hobbling around in a boot for 6 weeks. So she's in a boot hobbling around, and I'm thinking, this is crazy. We've both got things on and things to do. And then yesterday I was out feeding chickens and walked past a bit of tin, and it grabbed me on the leg and gave me a fucking massive gash right through where my calf muscle is on my right leg. And I'm sitting there holding my leg together, and I called Narelle and I said, I'm bleeding pretty bad. She goes, what happened? And I said, if you can get me a first aid kit or something. She's come back and she couldn't run. I said, don't run, don't hurt yourself. And I said,
so she's hobbling around.
She's hobbling on in a boot and a cane, and I'm lying on the ground, not lying on the ground. I'm standing there holding my leg together, and blood's gushing out all over the place. And she got a towel off the line, which was good actually, because I did a compression wrap on that. I just said, I can't get you to drive me. I'm going to call an ambulance. So I called an ambulance and told them what happened. They said, yeah, no worries. We'll get one to you. So Narelle made me like a little bed on the ground just in case I passed out, because I was standing out in the middle of a paddock. And so I've got all these little towels and pillows under my head and everything like that. And the ambos were great. They were there in no time at all. Whisked me up to the hospital. I get in there and they had a bit of a chat to me, took my details, and then within 40 minutes the doctor walked over and he goes, what have you done, mate? And I told him, and he goes, oof, better have a look at that. So he's pulled it off and he goes, yeah, that's a nasty cut. He goes, we've got to have a look and see what you've done. So he just goes, I apologise for what's going to happen here. He says, it's hurting now. And I said, it feels like sunburn right now. He goes, got a pretty good pain tolerance. He goes, but this is where it gets pretty exy. And he goes, I'm going to have to inject it with local and have a dig around in there and have a look what you've done. And I said, all right. And he goes, I'm not kidding. This is going to hurt. So deal with the pain, whatever way you've got to do with it. And mate, it just feels like somebody's just setting your leg on fire. I mean, and most people have had anesthetic, but they dig right into it, because I was watching him doing it. I'm squeamish about blood, but I'm not squeamish about that sort of thing. I was watching him doing it, and they have to dig right in there and, go around the areas, and oh man, it hurt like hell. But as soon as it was done, it was done. He goes, I'm going to have to flush it. And he goes, so you might not feel this. And he said, but then I'm going to put like a solution through it just to disinfect everything and clean up the wound and everything. I said, yeah. So he put saline through, he dug around, and he said, yeah, cool, you're lucky. It's a lucky, unlucky wound. There's skin tearing and fat damage and stuff like that. And he goes, but you didn't get your muscle or any vascular. And he said, so I'll be able to stitch you up here today. And I said, yeah, cool, that's great. So then he put the betadine mix or whatever it is through, and he said, if this hurts, then I've still got to numb you up. I didn't feel that, didn't feel the stitches. And we were just chatting away while he was doing that. And he was pretty cool. He was letting me take pictures and film him doing the surgery and stuff like that. So yeah, once that was done, I pretty much hopped off the gurney and walked out to the car. So it was great.
Nice.
Well, the local was on. It was great. I was going, oh yeah, this is cool. I'm not feeling anything. And then last night, fucking hell, it was terrible. Anyway, that's fun and games.
All right. Well, that's your life.
Yeah. Have you done any mischiefs lately? Anything we should know about?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm just plodding along.
Great.
Living my best life one day at a time.
Wonderful.
Hey, let's get into it, because we've got a topic and we've skirted around this one a couple of times and never actually spoken about it. So I actually did this. So if anybody that actually listened to the new ad that we did, I've started a subscription thing. I started a school community, which it's kind of like a Facebook group, but it's a paid group. People come in, they can do my courses, and then we can discuss it.
It's spelled SKOOL though, isn't it?
Yeah, SKOOL. Yeah. And if you get in there and search Serious Dog Business, or there'll be a link in the show notes or whatever, or find my social media, you'll find your way to it. It's the Serious Dog Business community, I've called it. What I ended up doing was I turned this into a bit of a webinar in there. And after I did that, I was like, this should be a podcast topic. Like, this is a thing that we can flesh out and really talk about here. So I'm going to do that. And what I want to talk about is defining success and how to actually do that. Because I feel like one of the problems that we have in the dog training space, and we've talked about this a bunch of times, is what is a trained dog? What is that? Who the hell could define what a trained dog is? We've tried to do that heaps of times. And to every individual who has a dog, and to every dog, there's a new formula that is created, right? Like, what do you want from the dog? What sort of things does the dog already have, need, want? All of that, it comes together to form one cohesive look at what is a trained dog.
I just want to interject there quickly, mate, because we left a podcast episode on that, and I was happy that we wanted to touch on this and pull it apart and discuss it further, because I think what people, especially professionals who are going out there to train other people's dogs, the misdiagnosis they're doing is a trained dog by my versions. So you and I were talking as we did the sort of wrap up, and we were talking about me getting out on the tools a lot more. And it's not something new, but the more trainers out there, and there is so many more trainers out there now than when in my earlier career, as you expand now, there's a trainer on every street corner almost. It's like drug dealers in America. They're on every street corner. Allegedly. Depends where you are. But
Just say no, kids.
No, what? Yes, that's right. Say no to drugs.
Say no.
Yeah. But
I saw a guy yesterday wearing a shirt that said, just say perhaps to drugs.
My point to that is there's people that I've gone and spoken to, and where they've had a run-in with their trainer or where they've had a disagreement with the trainer is the trainer has an idea of what a trained dog is, and as you alluded to the topic of defining success, their definition of success is I want a dog that looks like this. So your dog needs to look like this because this is the template that I know how to train a dog in, and this is the way it's got to be. It's got to be like this because this is how I define success. I define it by a dog doing this, this, and this. Now, it's lovely. And when you look at their dogs, you look at them and go, that's a very impressive dog. Like there's a lot of professional trainers and trainers along the ways in their own journeys that I've looked at their dog and thought, yeah, you've got a good dog. It's impressive what you do. But it's not the dog that everybody wants. It's not the amount of time that everybody has to put into that dog. So I think when we need to talk about these topics, we have to be real about who we're talking to, because if you examine some of the subject matter that we have pulled apart in earlier systems, we've talked about people who want to get into sports, and they're a different kettle of fish. You're talking about the difference between somebody who likes going down and having a bat at the nets at cricket or somebody who's playing for Australia or India or whatever like that. That's the difference between the two of them. Like somebody just likes to go and have a swing at the ball and there's no foul if nothing happens. You're not playing for money. You're not playing for trophies. You're not playing for your country. In dog sports, you're playing for your club. You're playing for your state. You're playing for your country. There is merit to doing those sort of things. But the millions and millions and millions of people are out there who don't want to do that. When you go around there and insist, this is success, this is what success looks like, and they go, yeah, no, that's not what my version of success is, because I have conversations with those people and they've just come off the back of having a very enthusiastic, it could be a dog sport person, a non-dog sport person. It could be just somebody who's just come off a course and is very, very wired up about what they've seen and what they think. Like many people who get involved in helping people out, sometimes people don't know what they don't know, and they find that out when a professional goes and sits with them and says, okay, well, your dog has the potential to do this. You have the potential to do this. So together, you and the dog and me, we could pull this out of it. But the question they don't conclude that with is if you want, if that's your wishes. And I think that's where we really need to talk about the definition of success is, or defining success is, it's not everybody's dream. It's not everybody's definitions to have a dog that is that good, that it's the pride of the community that it's doing all these amazing things. Sometimes just having a social dog that lets everybody pat it down the park or when they're on walks, that's all they ever wanted, and that's as happy, they're as happy as a pig in shit when they get a dog like that. And, you know, 100%. Scorning that and looking down on that, I think as a professional, if you're calling yourself a professional, you really missed it. You can say, I like this and this is what I like to chase, like you often do. There's things that you like to chase as Pat Stewart. You've got terms and definitions of what you think is successful, but, you know, you're vastly more flexible than a lot of dog sport people out there, because they just get blinkers on. They go, nah, your dog's a piece of shit. Can't do this. Nah, it's crap. It's terrible. You're a terrible trainer if you can't do this, if you can't do that. But again, you just missed your market, and they're wondering why the market dries up for them, because they just have this overarching toxic way of explaining things rather than sitting with their client and saying, all right, I'm a professional. You're a person in need. What's going to make you happy? You know, mate, I'm going to hand it to you in a sec, but It took me a while to actually be able to do that properly because I thought I was doing it properly, but there were times where I kind of thought, yeah, I'll listen to you for a bit and then I'll just convince you to do it the way that I want to do it. But I know that ruffles people, and I know that's when I don't get a repeat in seeing a clientele again because they just kind of go, I'll just say all the nice things and I'll move on to somebody else who gives me what I want. But let me also say, because I have said this in former episodes before, sometimes giving people what they want, and again, when they don't know what they don't know, sometimes that's where you do have to sit through and go through a program or some possibilities or some capabilities with them and say, there's some extra that we can pull out from this that I can show you that this would make you happier, because you just don't realize that you could do it yet. You don't understand how easy it is, how little work you can actually do to maintain it or even teach it and then maintain it. And then you've got a dog that not only did the minimal of what you wanted, but you've got this extra up your sleeve as well, like if you're going to do other things with it. At least you can consider it. But if you really don't want it, tell me what you want. We'll work on that. And I think that's, for many people, just listening and actually finding out what they want to do. And if they do want to build on it, great. If they don't, great.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I think to your point, I think as dog trainers, like, and I use this example all the time, people have probably heard me say it, is that we as dog trainers, the real dog people community have this thing against dog parks, right? They're very often very, very valid concerns, but dog parks aren't dog parks. There's a variety of different ones and how they function and the risk that you're going to be involved in. And the amount of times that I've been guilty of this before I understood the way that I was crushing people or basically telling people, that their dreams were invalid, is that a lot of the time as a trainer, when I would get to people and I would say like, okay, so like what is the actual goal here? So often I was in people's homes and they would say the goal is to get back to the dog park because they would have like a reactive dog problem or whatever. The classic dog trainer answer in that moment is like, well, you shouldn't be going to dog parks. And the amount of times that I said that, like, you shouldn't take this dog to dog parks. And you see people go like, but that's why I have the dog, right? Like there can be no success unless we're doing that. And in many areas, like the one that I take my dogs to, it's not the kind of dog park that you're imagining. It's part of a bigger normal park. It has an off-leash area and there's no fences there. So like if you're not the kind of person that can have a recall on your dog and control of the dog, you can't go there. So you get the odd problem there. And the reason people don't go there is because they have the problem dog. And when they're calling a trainer, when you're like, yeah, okay, so you've got all these issues and I can do this, this, and this. And they're like, none of those are my issues. Those are your issues. When you observe the things with my dog, you wouldn't want my dog. But my actual thing that I want to work towards is to use this dog to, go back to my social environment. Like the whole point that I have this is I like going to the park and hanging out with those people and, talking about our dogs and whatever it is, like that's my community and I want back into it. And that's one of the things that I think like having an actually well-defined understanding of what success is really important when you're working with a client, but also doing that yourself. The thing that sort of popped into my head when you were talking then, and I think that many dog trainers are good at this, look, most professionals are good at this, is that usually as a professional, we're good at solving a particular problem, right? And as we sort of niche down, you get better and better at solving a particular problem. What ends up happening is a lot of professionals get better and better at convincing people they have that problem because they know how to solve it, right? And I don't think too many of us actually sit back and go, okay, so what is your problem? What is it that you've called me for? And it's one of the things that I have learned to say to everyone I'm working with. I look at people and I say, what is it that makes you feel like you got what you employed me for? Describe that to me. What is it that makes you happy? What is it that when I walk out of the door, you go, yes, I got what I paid for? Because you've got to understand what they want, not what you want to do with their dog. And as you say, like I'm a dog trainer. I like to train dogs to do things. Sitting around with dogs doing nothing is not my thing, right? And that's kind of like, it's why I'm not enjoying my dog life so much at the moment. I mean, that's not a fair thing to say, but my dogs are old. Springer's 12. She's deaf. She can't do anything. I love my dogs. I love them dearly. And I spend, huge amounts of time with them, but just hanging out with the dog doesn't spin the dials for me. I want to train a dog. I want to work with the dog. I want to be doing stuff with the dog. But like most people, that's not it. They want to spend time with their dog, especially with my current attitude about how I feel about dogs and dog training. To bring me into somebody else's home and try and have me say, oh, well, I'll define what success is for you. That's a fucking disaster. Like, there's no way I can define what success is for somebody else because I have a pretty warped worldview, right? Like, I think dogs should work. I think that dogs should have a purpose. I think that like we should be working towards that purpose with the dog together. I believe in like a partnership of that kind rather than a like, this is my Suki Lala that comforts me. And to lots of people, that's what they want and fair to them, but that's not what I want. And so for me to then go into somebody's house and try and impose onto them my definition of success with the dog, it might completely miss the point of what their definition of success is and therefore like actually why they're employing me. Then, you know, I don't get to make, I'm not got a happy customer. I've not provided them the thing that they've asked me for. That means either bad reviews, no referrals, and as a business, we do poorly. But more than that, I'm not actually serving the person, right? Like I'm not actually providing the service that they've employed me to provide. So I have like a bit of a list of things that I want to go through and then just sort of a bit of a quick understanding of how you can help somebody determine success, because that's one of the things that I think we don't often do is in any sort of situation, sit down, think about our problem and then go, okay, like when is this problem solved? And I think that that is such an important thing to do, is to put a line in the sand and know when you've crossed it. Because so many people, when you are fighting an infinite battle can be extremely fatiguing, right? Like when there is no way to tell, have I made any ground? Am I moving towards success? Am I close to it? Am I getting closer? Am I getting further away? Unless you have defined it, you haven't got a fucking clue which direction you're moving towards or away from it. There's an old Stoic saying, when you don't know what port you're headed to, no wind is favorable, right? Like if you don't know where you're going, you don't know the difference between a good outcome and a bad outcome because you don't know what the fuck where you're actually headed. How do you know if something is helping you get there or not? So what I want to do is talk about what is success, how to define it, and then work through how to sort of set a plan to get to it. How's that sound?
It sounds good. Let me ask you a question because I'm curious to how you handle it, because I would imagine that you and I are not indifferent from each other. We seem to have a kinship in the way we train dogs and think about things and philosophize about training because we've spent so much time together. We've gone and mentored under many of the same people and done many of the same practices. But let's say, for example, somebody gives you a wish list of things that they want to complete with their dog. The first time you meet them or first time you have a conversation, how does that begin? What do you say to them?
I usually just try to get to know them and understand, like without the dog present, I prefer, and actually I just had this yesterday. I had someone come in and I filmed the whole thing. I'm going to put it into that group I was talking about. The first thing I want to do is sort of, how did you get here? Tell me about what has happened in the past. Tell me, like, give me the history really before I do anything else. I want to know, like, how is it that I have come to either be in your house or you've ended up at my shop or whatever it is. Like, how is it that we got here? And I usually will ask a lot of probing sort of questions. Personally, the way that I like to do it, I have two whiteboards. When I do it here at my shop and people come in, I have two whiteboards. I sort of take notes on what they're saying in front of them so they can see those notes. And then we refine that. We go to the other whiteboard and we keep bouncing back and forth. I like rub one out. We sort of refine that message. It comes down and then we go back to the other one and back and forth until we actually come up with a plan.
Yeah, I like that because you're kind of mind mapping things out and it offers visualization for people to actually see something tangible in front of them rather than talking about the guesstimation of ethereal projects and so forth. I don't do the whiteboard thing. When I'm saying that, I do when they come to Dural. If they're at Dural and I'm at Dural and I pull the whiteboard over and we show some diagrams and we write down a few things that are meaningful for them. I do take a lot of notes and I also do offer a program. But one of the things that I have been doing exceedingly more is listening to what they want and allowing them that passage to talk. We spoke about that only a few episodes back, but I let them tell me anything that they want to tell me. The one thing that I do now is the follow-up question from that, once we've sort of got to the end of where they want to go, is what do you want to achieve first? What's the most important thing out of these list of, like, you've given me 6 things that are important to you. Which is the most important to you? Because reality is, if we're going to get started on something, let's do the one that's giving you the most brain damage now with the dog. Let's work on that problem. Or let's just have a look at these to determine what it's going to take to get there with some of these things. Because a lot of times, as I said, it's just alphabet noodles. They just basically blurt out a bunch of stuff. And I said, let's define it into something easy, achievable, and something that you can actually go away with and start seeing some immediate results within this next week. Because if we try to do all those, it's like anybody who tries to play music, pick up golf, become a mechanic or anything like that, you don't start by doing all the technical stuff and all the difficult stuff first. You do it by picking something that's doable, achievable, and just getting more hands-on time with that. That's the only way of getting better, is spending more time on the said project and just incrementally working in a success pathway, but also acknowledging the mistakes that you're making. Don't see them so much as punishers. It's just a error rate that you've got to go, okay, did work. Let's continue. The same way we do shaping. Whenever we're shaping something, is teaching the dog, it's not working. It is. It worked. You're successful. And it's the same sort of thing, because human or dog, we're still shaping towards a project behavior, and we still want to get them to do it. So that's one of the things that many of us agree on when we're doing these sort of things, is start small, build up from there. From little things, big things grow. That's kind of the project management and the time scale that we want to work people on, but also listening to them and validating. I know these are all the things that you want. This is all the things you're excited about. This is all the thing that Dr. Google and all your friends down at the dog park and all the people that you're speaking to on Facebook are telling you that you should be telling, but they don't know your dog. They haven't seen it. They probably haven't been around there. They've probably worked 2 years consistently on their own dog's behavior, and they're very proud of what they've achieved. They've got a milestone. They can brag about it. They can also get in your face and show you what they're doing, but they don't tell you how long it really took them to do it, how much time they really spent on it, how many people they had to be advised on fixing these problems. So don't worry about that. We're comparing apples with oranges if we're doing that. Let's go back to apples and apples. Let's go back to your story, what you were talking about before. Same thing, Pat, is we really want to get down to the nitty-gritty with them and say, let's focus on what you can do, on the things that you can do.
Yeah. My heading, I say, is you cannot be successful unless you first define success, right? You need to know when you've crossed that line. So there has to be a definition of it. And so what I think, coming up with your own definition of success can be really difficult. And we're going to go through the process of how you would do that. But what I think is important is that people don't just borrow a definition of success from somebody else. When I say don't borrow a definition of success, when I tell people that, I often say to them, do not borrow it from me. Like I said, my goals to what I want from my dog are likely to be very different to yours. I think that it's also important that people don't borrow their definition of success from a coach that they find or a class that they go to. And I think one of the difficulties is, like, a lot of people just sort of outsource to the authority. And it's so easy to turn up, like, you find your coach, or, you go to the class, the group class that you're going to if you're, just doing basic pet stuff, or your coach if there's something crazy that you're thinking you want to achieve. And your coach or the class that you go to, that can help you understand what success is. Like, it can give you like a picture of that, and it can for sure help you get to it, but it is not going to give you a relevant definition made just for you, because a coach doesn't know you and the ins and outs of your details of your life. I coach dozens of people, like online and in person. And the truth is, like, I just can't know them well enough to give them 100% relevant advice. Like, there's just no way I can do that. I barely know myself well enough to get everything right and what I should do, right? Like, I don't know the way you live with your dog and the very specifics of it. I don't know, like, how you feel in the morning when you wake up. I don't know those sorts of details that only you do. So I think it's really important that we don't borrow a definition of success from a coach or a class, because those are how you'll get to the success, but they're not how you should define it. I think as well, one of the sort of things that you got to stay away from is, like, you look for advice from friends and family, like, ask them their opinions, and you should value your friends and family's opinions, but it shouldn't be that you just take it holus bolus. Like, I feel like, I constantly ask people for feedback on things. You are a person who I've contacted plenty of times, like, hey, what do you think of this? Or there's heaps of people that I contact to say, hey, can you check this over for me? Should I post this? Do you see any problems with this? Like involving people and giving you feedback is crucial. You have to involve people in your decision-making process, but it still needs to be your decision. And you've got to remember as well that whenever you're getting advice from everybody, whenever you're looking to define what success will be for you, is that, like we discussed in the last episode, there's a different version of you in everybody's head. And none of them are the real you, right? Like they're the you that they think of, but none of them are the you that you think of. And I think one of the things as well, like when I think about that, and I've had people say like, oh no, they know me really well. I'm like, mate, I evolve. I surprise myself, right? Like there's times when I'm like, oh, wow, I'm surprised I feel this way. And those feelings sort of come from somewhere that I don't necessarily understand. So there's no fucking way somebody else understands that, right? There's no way that somebody who isn't as intimately connected to me as me can understand me better than myself. And so I think that it's important to take information in from other places, but you must not like just lean on it entirely because it will not be perfect information for you. It might be good information for you, but it's not going to be perfect. And the last place that I think it's really important that you don't borrow a definition of success from is from like a rival or social media. And so I think that these days, lots of people, like I certainly have this, right? Like one of my closest friends, a dude that I love more than as much as anybody in the world, he's a rival because we're competitive dickheads together, right? Like we will numerous times come up against each other. We've had stupid competitions where the loser has to get a tattoo. Like we rival each other all the time. But what he wants from his life and what I want from my life are different things.
Yeah.
So when I look at him, I shouldn't look at him and go, oh, I have to achieve those things. We can be, in competition in some parts of our life. Like you might look at somebody who, maybe you're going to come into competition against in the real dog world, or you might look at a competitor in business or anything like that. And you can have a rivalry. But when you see a rival being, in your opinion, in that moment, more successful than you really have to look within and say, are they though? Right? Because like, would that life and its entirety, not the snapshot that I'm seeing in social media, but would that circumstance, that way of living, would that actually suit me the way that I think that it would? Because I'm looking at this piece of it. I think the best example of that, and it's one that like we all struggle with, is that when you get a dog, there will be somebody else in your world, in your sphere. And if not, then social media will bring them to the forefront because you're posting puppy stuff that has a similar dog of a similar age. And what we constantly see, I see this, I've been guilty of it. And I've had plenty of clients come to me and they say, yeah, but my dog's litter mate is doing this. Or I've seen this other guy who's got a dog the same age and he's got the same goal as me and he's at this point. And I constantly say to people like, no, he's not. You've seen videos of that. Does that align with your plan? The amount of times that I've seen somebody at the same stage in training as me, like they've got a young dog and it's the same age as mine or one that I'm working with, and I see what they're capable of. And for sure, there are times where I've had that deep internal like, oh, fuck, I'm a fraud because the dog I'm training isn't doing the same things that they're doing. And then you got to sit in that for a moment and go like, wait, we're on a totally different path here. I'm not training towards the same goal as this person, right? Like we're working towards different things. So this comparison, this rivalry or this social media observation I'm making of this person, it's making me feel bad and making me, want to change maybe my definition of success to comport to be closer to theirs so that I can appear to be more successful than them. And I feel like that's something that everybody's going to feel because that's part of being a human being is trying to outperform others. That's why we've built this incredible society because we're trying to constantly move forward and evolve and do all these fucking things. It's then sort of swallowing that and being like, no. Their success is a different thing to my success. I have defined my own success and I am working towards that. And when you've done that, then you can tell whether you're making progress or not. So to sort of summarize that, I think it's very important to not just borrow somebody else's version or definition of success. And you can't just take that from a coach or a class. It certainly shouldn't come from friends or family. And you shouldn't be looking to do the same as your rival, whether they're a real friend that you're in a rivalry with, or an actual person you dislike, don't look at that so much and don't get yourself stuck into that social media thing of like, well, I have to do that thing because that person thinks that's successful if that's not what you think is success.
I like that. I think there is so many seeds of wisdom scattered throughout all those points that you just made. It's making me think about conversations that I've had with people that I've been doing some online mentoring with. And I know you do a lot of it, and I do some of it as well. And there's people in the United States, sometimes in the UK and Australia, that I talk to about what they want to do. Some of these people might be sports people. Many of them are people dealing with aggressive problems, and other people are just, they just want to talk to me about their dog and their journey and where they're going. Many of these people have got a local coach. And for some reason or other, if you look at, and I'm not outing anybody, I'm just talking in general from the consensus that I'm looking, a lot of times the coach has stopped listening to them. They've stopped communicating with them. They've stopped including them in the conversation, and now they're giving them orders. They're primarily telling them, this is what I want to do, and this is what you're going to do because I'm the coach and I know better than you know. There might be some truth to that about some skills that they do with the dogs. But the underlying point to something that we were kicking a can down the road with before is that many times they're not asking the person how they feel about the situation. So when I talk to them, I think I find that it's more of a counseling session than it is a training session, because they're coming to me to say, this is what's happened. I don't want to create an issue with it, and I don't want to stir up trouble or fall out with this person, but this is what's happening and this is the frustration that I'm feeling. And I've said, okay, at the end of the day, whose dog is this? And I said, that's the very question that I need to put to you, and you need to have a good think about this, because it doesn't matter how much I love somebody, how much I respect for them. If they're barking orders at me like I'm a piece of shit and telling me that they've got a view and I'm just a total screw up, it might not last anymore. I might just decide I don't come to you to do something in my spare and hobby time that I love and have a passion for, to find that I'm just being now abused in this relationship. This is not something I want to do. Sometimes it's quite serious, and it's quite crazy how intensified it can become. So again, I'm not calling anyone out. There's people out there who have probably asked you and likewise asked me to maintain their privacy. But nonetheless, they've got to a point in the relationship where something has just not gone right. Again, to borrow from our topic header, the success pathway is not their success pathway anymore. And they've actually lost vision and passion on it, because it's not fun anymore. It's not what they signed up for. It's kind of what happens in any abusive relationship, is that you front up waiting to be belted. You're waiting for punishment. There have been some times where I've said to some of the people that I'm having the chats with, there's a person in your area I've done a bit of research on. I really think the extra 15, 20 minute, half an hour drive, you would be far better off going and seeing this person, having a chat with them, letting them have a look at where you are, because I find this person is technically very proficient at listening to people and working with their skill set.
Yeah.
The people who have done that and have approached that pathway, they've come back and said, mate, night and day. They've come back and said, yes, went down and spoke to him. I really feel like I'm included in this decision-making or this relationship with me, them, and my dog now. It's so much better. Pat, you've said this so many times before. Don't give yourself an unnecessary master. Don't put yourself in a position where somebody is taking over your life. It's like giving people your PIN number to your bank account and trusting that they're a good person and they'll never go in and take money off you. Well, they might not, but one day they might. One day they might go, I don't like this person. I don't have a respect for them. I don't care. I'll just take it. And that's, those sort of things happen with the dogs too. There's been people who have been involved in clubs before where they're working with people in a club environment. They're getting abused. They're getting made fun of. They're getting turned out in front of other people down the club. I've had club people talk to me about these very things before, and I've said, that's not cool. It's nice to have some lighthearted banter and pick on each other. And, like I said, Australians are synonymous for that sort of thing. I said, the more we like you in a group, all Aussies will have this friendly banter with each other. And the more you're sort of calling each other out in a friendly way, it's a sign of that the more I love you and respect you, like you're my deep friend because I know I can say this to you. And you wouldn't say that to somebody who's new or a bit light, a bit thin-skinned or anything like that. But when it's not that, and when it is something that is quite inflammatory, you got to look at it and say, hey, this relationship just took a turn for the worse. I'm not training my dog anymore. I'm the laughing boy down here. I'm just somebody who's here at the expense of everybody else to be called out and to, for everyone to point at and say, check this fuckwit out. And that's a terrible feeling, mate, because there's been people with potential, or there might be people with a learning disability or incapability that they need a special sort of teacher to turn around and say, what are you struggling with, mate? Like how thin do I need to pull this back so we can work together? Like, you tell me where you've been lost on this journey, and you tell me where we need to kick this off from. Like, tell me what you understand. You said that before. I like that. I think that is something, there's times where I've needed a coach to do that for me as well when I haven't understood something. And I've said, can you explain this to me like I'm a child, because I don't understand what you're talking about? It might not necessarily be dog training. It's just somebody that I've gone to for advice. It could be somebody who's involved in mathematics or accounting or something like that. Explain it to me like I'm a child. Like I'm just learning this because I don't know what you're saying. And then they go, oh, okay, cool. All right. Yeah, you're right. I'm talking about this at a level that I understand. That makes sense to me. So I haven't included you. I haven't defined anything. I've just, just rambled off on a pathway, and none of it worked.
It's probably pretty uncommon that somebody fully flourish under one mentor. When I think about that, my mind goes back to this old Gordon Ramsay episode, right? Like, love him or hate him or however you feel about Gordon Ramsay. Back in the day, like I think I was still, maybe I'm not still in school when I saw this. So it has to be like over 25 years ago. But there was this episode where, he's this thug, he's this, whatever you think about Gordon Ramsay, he's certainly competent as a chef, and he is the person who takes over everywhere he goes. And in the show, I think it was the Kitchen Nightmare show, he goes in and fixes a problem. He turns up and you're a disaster, and this guy comes in and he's in charge and he's loud and he's the guy that's going to fix a problem. Well, they had this episode where he was with his mentor, who was this like Michelin star chef. What was amazing to see is he was a completely different character in the presence of his mentor, the guy who actually trained him. And so, like, I think that often it can be really hard when you're under one coach for a long time to really, thrive or to flourish completely. Not impossible, and people do it, and that's an exceptional coach when it pulls off. But the thing is, as well, you tend to, like, it's very difficult to change characters within the same cast, right? So when you like develop a relationship with someone and it's a mentor-mentee relationship, you think of yourself as the mentor, they think of themselves as the mentee. That is a very difficult thing to change. And I think very often you see people who perhaps outgrow their mentor, right? Get better than their mentor because they're looking elsewhere. And that's the goal. Like, frankly, if you don't outgrow your mentor, you've not succeeded. This is a fucking relay race. You're meant to pass the baton. As the mentor, you are meant to have your students outgrow you, right? But I think that it can be pretty difficult to see the growth in someone that you're seeing all the time. And I think sometimes that's why people have to be unafraid. Like, they'll outgrow the person who taught them. And exactly as you sort of allude to, like, you and I both will have people come to us and be like, hey, I've heard you talk about this. That is in conflict with my mentor, who I can't have that conversation with. And every time I try and open that conversation with them, they just shut me down because they think I don't know anything. I want to have that conversation with you. I want to explore these topics and I want to move into that area. I've done that a bunch of times for people. I know you've done a similar sort of thing. But I'll bet you we have been the person someone else is talking about when they go to somebody else. Like,
oh, of course.
There's zero doubt in my mind that I've been that.
I accept on various levels that there's people that I haven't mentored well. There's people that I haven't.
But you might have mentored them fucking awesomely and they've outgrown you, but you haven't recognized that. Like, I know for sure that has been the case with people that I've trained, right? Like, I've gotten people and then there's this immediate sort of like, oh, who's this fucker think they are, right? Like, that's the immediate like reaction that your animal body fires. But when you think about it and like, for sure that mechanism fires on me just like everybody else. But when I then sort of take a step back and think about it, I can go, oh, fuck, yes, no, like they've outgrown me. I've done a good job. right? Like I've done it. Like I've passed on the information that I can pass to this person.
Mm.
And of course you get people who then think you're a piece of shit. Like that's I think one of the really funny things is people who outgrow their mentor and then think their mentor's a piece of shit.
Yeah,
Because
that
they're
is
still
funny.
talking about, yeah. And a lot of the times, like I've heard this, I'm happy to speak on criticism of myself, is like, I'll hear people say like, oh, Pat, they start with me. Like they start somewhere else, they get into dog training, then they look at me and they go, oh, like he's the advanced step. And they start training with me and then they move on to someone more advanced and they go, oh, he thinks he's advanced. He doesn't know shit. You sort of like, I've said to people, I'm like, no, man, like I've chosen the part that I'm really good at teaching and I teach that part and you've got it. Good for you. Fuck yeah. Like time for you to move on to somebody else who will teach you the next bit. But don't for one fucking second think, oh, I don't know that next bit too. Right? Like I know it. But I have decided that I'm teaching within this part and you've outgrown me. Fuck yes. Good for you. Move on to this other person. But don't think of me as like an obstruction to you going there. I was your fucking on-ramp, mate. Like I got you to the point where now you can hold a conversation with that person who's so far advanced from where you were when you started with me. I got you to that point. And I've been the person people go to and I've been the person people leave, right? Like that's going to happen. That happens at every fucking level. If the people that you're mentoring don't outgrow you, you have failed as a mentor. The worst thing in the world that can happen to your mentor is they stay your mentor for the rest of your life, right? You have to outgrow them or not even outgrow them, but at least reach parity with them in one way or another as you then take on the specialization that is relevant to you. But you must not forget they have the specialization that is relevant to them.
Everything that you were talking about then, I don't know why, man, but I just had flashbacks of Rocky V when he,
Yeah.
to summarize it, anyone.
Which one's Rocky V?
I'll summarize it for you. I'll summarize it because this is the fight after Rocky IV, which was with Ivan Drago, when he kills Apollo Creed, goes over there to Russia and then beats him. But when he comes back into Rocky V, he's fucked up from the fight. Like he's been hit so many times, he's in a bad way. And he goes to the doctors and the doctors have pretty much said, you're one blow away from death. And they lose all their money. His brother-in-law, Paulie, invests all their family money and it goes south and basically their life is collapsing. And he meets this guy called Tommy, who's a young hothead in the neighborhood, but he's a good, talented boxer and he wants to learn from Rocky, wants to be mentored by him. Rocky is a little resistant at the start, but then gets involved in it and says, yeah, okay, well, let's do it. But if we're going to do this, we've got to do it the way that I was shown, the right way to do it. I need to mentor you right. And then when we've done this the correct way, then the money will come. What you need to do is become a respectable boxer. You need to start in the shallows and then move your way into deep water. And then from there, that's where the championship will come. And that's where all your, like your ambitions will flourish. Through that, this guy called Tommy, whose fighting name is Tommy Gunn, he gets involved with a boxing promoter and a floozy chick that's hanging around with him at the time that hooks him up. And it's really to entice him and to lure him over into the fast way. This promoter, who's a bit like a Don King sort of character in real life, encourages him to shun Rocky and to turn against him and then even to challenge him. And I've seen that in real life. I've experienced that with people. And I just think I've mentored people before and I've worked with them and I've opened doors to them. I've introduced them to people. These are people that, like most people, like me, like anybody who gets involved, they're very low skilled when they start. You help them out. You see potential in them. You care about them. You bring them on. And some people are fantastic with that. They don't owe you anything because they've already given it to you along the way. Many of these people have paid for your knowledge and they've given it to you. But when you become close to some of these people and you become more than clients, you become like friends or even in some cases like a family sort of thing. The people who I find are the most disgusting of all of them are the ones that turn on you when they meet some piece of filth that's out there in the community that lures them into thinking, fucking turn on your mentor. Yeah. Instead of saying you should appreciate, and I have introduced other people to other mentors in different fields because they've said to me, hey, Glenn, you do a lot of this, but I really want to get into this. I said, yeah, cool. I know the guy. I know the girl. Let me give you the number or the email. Call them up. I can even help ahead and put in a good word for you, which I've been happy to do. And then they've gone off and done something else. And, years later, we're at a seminar and they came back and said, hey, remember when, like you and I met and I was at this level and now I've done this and I've achieved all this. I couldn't be fucking happier for them. So good.
Yeah.
You know, and I might not have seen them for years. When we catch up with like old soldiers, we're patting each other on the back. We're talking about old times. I'm happy for them. They're happy for me. Life's good. It's great. That's part of a beautiful community. But when you get these ingrateful fucking that turn on you, that shit in your face, and really they're deplorable people, absolutely deplorable, because they're everything other than building community. What they're trying to do is build their own sub-community so then they can go to war with yours. Oh, man, I've seen it far too many times. It's one of the reasons why I have so much resistance to dog sport worlds, is because it flourishes in dog sports. And unfortunately, it's like warring tribes rather than a great group of people who want to get together and then look at it like, okay, we've already got enough problems with government and legislation going on in our countries. We've already got all of these dramas going on. Our government's trying to pull the pin on everything that we find we're enjoying in life. We don't need it with each other. We need to come together. We need to say, yeah, look, we're competing against each other. We're doing all this sort of stuff. But then again, to refer to boxing, it's when you watch two people that are pounding the fucking shit out of each other in a ring for 10, 12 rounds, whatever it is, they get to the end and then, you know, like they pick each other up, they embrace each other. And, you know, like they're just so happy, so honored to be able to fight with a worthy opponent. They didn't look at him like, you're my enemy. They looked at it like, wasn't that great that you and I got to test our skills against each other? Yeah. And for some reason, I came out ahead today. It doesn't mean that you're a lesser fighter than me. It doesn't mean that you're a lesser dog sport competitor than me. It's just that on today, I was better prepared, or I got a better shot in, my fitness was better, or something happened that led me to the podium instead of you today. When I think of people like that in the dog world, in the competitive worlds, I think of people like Brent Dry. Like, it doesn't matter who he's ripping apart on a BJJ mat. He's always so thankful that the other person gave him space to go in and do those sort of things, because he is a beautiful person and a lovely human being. And that's what we need more of when we're defining success and we're thinking about those sort of people, and we're looking back at the good fortune of who we've got in the dog sport world, creating it like a better world, because what we're doing is not just limited to Australia, it's going around the world. We're talking to people around the world. We've met people around the world because there's people who are listening to our show around the world. So it's a wonderful thing that when you look at it, and I never take it for granted when I look around the world and I think I am so lucky to be a person that when I was younger and involved in training, like look at all the people that I've got to meet and hold a conversation with, break bread with, attend their seminar, ask them questions, whatever it might be. That's been some of my definitions of success, is just to be able to hold space, not just important people, but some impressive people. And they might not be the best dog trainer in the world, but it's not the reason why I went to them. Sometimes, like, I've gone and had conversations with people in the dog space because they're a fucking good human being as well. I've loved some of the thoughts and the thinking that they're doing and how they treat other people. And sometimes I think to myself, that's how I want to try and model myself. I can take a little bit of that person because I can see how that person would rub off on me and help me become a better version of who I want to become as well. Not just as a dog trainer, but also as a person. So, you know, to all the people out there who did that, thank you very much. It doesn't matter whether I was teaching you something or you were teaching me something. I've learned something from each and every one of you, and I am very appreciative. You know, every year that ticks on, every episode that we've done on this platform, all the conversations that we've got to have with people, it's all been a part of a very important journey, and I'm overwhelmingly appreciative of that time as well. And for the people who weren't like that, I'm glad that you're out of my life as well. I mean, I don't want to end it on a negative, but you know, I am. There's just some people, I'm glad that the door is closed because you revealed yourself. You just showed, unfortunately, what you're all about. And you're like that Tommy Gun character. You're just ready to grab the cash, and, you know, like the fast appeal is the better life to you. And good luck to you and your cronies. It always ends badly.
So we talked about don't borrow definitions of success from elsewhere. Now I want to be careful, because some people then go, all right, I'm not looking for other people's success. And then they just don't come up with their own plan, which is probably even worse, right? And so I think no definition of success creates more problems than borrowing somebody else's definition. Let's talk about how. with no plan, you will change criteria constantly. So, people some people are attracted to difficulty. Some people are repelled by difficulty. The path that people take is not necessarily always going to be the path of least resistance. I learned that, from so many of the guys that I was in the army with, they will find the hardest way to do everything because they love that feeling of frustration. They're like my dog, all right? They're constantly looking for, how do I feel like I'm being held back from something all the time? And that's what pushes them to achieve nonstop. But when you don't actually, set a target, if you're the kind of person that needs to be busy, or if you're the kind of person who doesn't want to be busy, you constantly will change criteria in the whims of the day, right? Like, what is the feeling of today? Where does that send me? And with a constantly changing criteria is one of the best ways to create problems with a dog. The common theme of what I'm about to go through in these couple of points is that overwhelmingly, I feel like, and I'm sure you'd agree, Glenn, and probably everybody listening, is we just seem to experience reactive dog after reactive dog after reactive dog. It just seems to me like dog reactivity is the norm now. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I think that a lot of it has to do with shitty breeding. A lot of it has to do with shitty fucking advice from force-free trainers. But I think overwhelmingly, the reasons we're going to go through now is if you don't know where you're headed and you don't have a definition of success and you're just doing random shit all the time, the dog can't figure it out. And reactivity is caused by many, many things. There can be many reasons why a dog would be reactive, but reactivity really is about options. And so when there's constantly there's this and this and this, then that creates anxiety. And usually anxiety is expressed as reactivity, where a dog is reacting in a way that we don't want. Whereas reducing options and giving a surety reduces anxiety because now I know how it's going to go. I always use the same example. It's pretty morbid, but you can see it. When people, there is usually, we would say there's no worse outcome than death. And when people get a death penalty, that's a disaster for them, obviously, right? And their appeals process is this long drawn out thing, and it's super stressful, and it's an emotional roller coaster for the people. But once those appeals are done and no, it's happening, you see people on their way, because unfortunately there's video, you can watch of that, but they're usually pretty calm because it's no, this is the outcome. So the worst possible outcome still usually results in a pretty calm person because there's no other way it's going to go. The anxiety comes from options. And so when we have a clear definition of success, we take away a lot of the erroneous options. We're no, this is where we're headed. These are the things.
Do you think that reactivity is overprescribed or underprescribed?
What do you mean?
Well, do you think that
in?
When we're talking about dog behavior, do you think that it's been referred to too often and being...
Yeah. So overwhelmingly, I think that so many of the people who will say they have a reactive dog have a dog that needs to be told, hey, shut the fuck up and stop doing that.
Yeah.
And it will. And that'll be the end of it. Right. And they're going through this ridiculous 27-step multi-fucking nonsense that's never going to work, or, will work in 6 months perhaps, right? Depending on how it's going to go. Whereas in reality, that's a dog that just needs to be told, hey, don't do that. Knock it off. I wish that we were filming. We've got plenty of versions of it in the puppy course, but me and Jazz have new puppies at the moment. And one of them comes walking over, sees me for the first time, loses his mind, wants to just goes barking like a puppy would. And she just hey, shut up, walks him over to me. It has a bit of a freak out, immediately goes into appeasement behavior, now thinks I'm his best friend, right? So what could have been the reactive dog? Oh no, he barked and lunged and carried on. We got to get him out of this situation. He's afraid of that. Now we have to come up with a desensitization counter conditioning plan. We got to do all this. We just went hey man, don't show that behavior. That's not going to get you what you want. Okay. Yeah. That behavior. That's the one.
Yeah.
Reactivity averted. And that's what everybody with common sense used to do with a dog. And now we've been told that's the wrong thing to do, or people have been convinced that's the wrong thing to do, that that dog's uncomfortable. The idea that all discomfort has to be avoided at the cost of everything is fucking madness. And that's the thing. That's one of the reasons why I'm so keen to have this community thing going, because where we can actually discuss real dog behaviors. The amount of times I see where people are oh, but the dog might experience an element of stress in that time. Yeah, no shit. That's part of life, right? I'm experiencing an element of stress dealing with you. That's part of life.
That's a good point, man. And I'm glad that you went through that definition, because I feel that, well, I've been watching other people online saying, I think that we're way over prescribing reactivity. And I tend to agree. I think we are. I think there's a lot of times where I've watched people who clearly don't know what they're talking about addressing a dog as a reactive dog. And it falls within the guidelines of that puppy that you were just explaining before. The dog's just having experience. It's kind of going, I don't know how to feel about this right now. Don't really have a Rolodex of life to go through and pull a card out and say, all right, I'll deal with it this way. They go, I'm just a baby and I don't know how to deal with this. And then you go, yeah, no, that's not how you deal with it. And the dog goes, right, cool. And that comes down to good leadership as well sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. And like for sure, dogs, as you would say, are like being assigned the label of reactive way too soon, because like as I say to so many people, I couldn't use a non-reactive dog in the way that I like to roll with dogs. If a dog is non-reactive, it's dead, right? Like the only dogs that are non-reactive are the sloth couch potatoes that have no drive, because a dog should react to stuff. It shouldn't be bark, lunge, growl at everything, but it should react. It should have like a feedback about, like if it's not reacting, it's not operant. Like that's what operancy is, a reaction to a stimulus, right? But anyway, I want to keep going with this. And I feel like talking reactivity is a separate episode in itself. Without a definition of success, you'll have inconsistent rewards and punishments that will confuse your learner. My next point is the dog then often gets blamed for not being a mind reader of a jumbled mind. So this is one of the things, right? The amount of people who have never actually defined what success is and now will reward and punish things in the dog. But how do you know where you're moving the dog towards or away from, right? Like if you haven't defined what success is, you're expecting the dog to read your mind, and your mind is probably a disaster of it because you have not actually put it to paper and figured out what it is. The other one that I then say is that no end goal means a consistently open loop. And that to me is why defining success has been such an important part of my own like personal development, never mind dog training and stuff. But like, I think it's important that you draw a line in the sand and know when you've crossed it. The best example I use of this all the time is I have a friend who is constantly in a battle with Veterans Affairs, and he has been fucked over badly, right? Like he is a badly wounded soldier who has been really badly fucked over by the Department of Veterans Affairs. But as I said to him many times, I was like, mate, you have to know when they have done right by you, right? Like you have to draw that line, and because it's so easy to get into the like, they fucked me over, they should give me this, they should give me this, they should give me this. And like, you don't want to spend your life thinking that, mate. So you have to decide like when has the toll been paid? Like when are you square with these people? And so when you cross that line, you can let go of this, because otherwise you'll never let it go and you'll be stuck in this open loop for the rest of your life, which I think is one of the worst forms of anxiety. I know certainly it is for me. Having a consistently open loop is the thing that like keeps me up at night. That's why when people put me into group chats, I leave, or I'm not a participant. I can't be in a conversation that goes forever. I can't do that because it fucking does my head in. Like I need a conclusion to things, right? And I think that that's like dogs are very much the same. I need a definition so I know when I've achieved it, and I can go like, success. We had success today because we either moved towards the end goal or maybe we crossed it and now I can work on something else. The big one, and this is probably the last thing to say on it, is that confusion in the handler creates conflict in the dog. So if you're confused about what you're actually working towards, you will create conflict between you and the dog, because a dog typically is just trying to go with the flow, right? Like a dog is just trying to find success, but if you don't define it, it will never know when it got there, and that will cause a level of conflict between you and the dog. That's my sort of very high level sort of talk about it. If you're interested in that, there's much more that I went on. I did a full webinar on this and then went through like an actual planning process of how to actually define that, how to write out like, this is how I feel, and then put the pieces in and break apart each word and go into all the detail and decide like how to come up with a task verb. That's one of the things that I'm trying not to sort of reference too many army things. I've been out of the army for a long time, but the army is so good at so many things. And one of them is developing a task verb, right? Like, which is the word that describes what I'm doing, right? Like you've got to have a good task verb. You've got to have like, what is it that I'm trying to achieve? You've got to have a mission. If you're going to talk about success, you've got to have a mission. So you know where, like, this is what I'm trying to achieve. And then your task verb is how you're going to do it. And then you develop a whole plan from that. If people are interested in that, jump into my thing. It's totally free. You can check out this webinar. Links in the show notes, or get into school and type in serious dog business, or just yell serious dog business from the top of a mountain and the algorithm will eventually get it to you.
How long has the army in Australia been running for?
1901. We had our own army.
1901, so 100.
So the old recruiting phone number. So you remember those old army ads, 1901?
Yep.
That's the army's birthday.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So 125 years of an amalgamation of strategy and tactics and evolution that's gone through not only by our own nation, but also including the learnings of other people that have been involved in planning strategies.
I'd argue it's 6,000 years.
Yeah,
you know?
that's what I'm saying.
Like
is it's going back, and it's studying, like a timeline of everybody right up to ancient Rome and probably beyond that. It looked at battle tactics, Sun Tzu, all of the people who are infamously and famously known around the world for tactics, strategy, battle plans. When you talk about army, there's a lot of wisdom that comes out of that. Some people go, "Oh, army schmummy, don't want to know about all this sort of shit." But when you're talking about being a student in a platform and being fast-tracked to a great wealth of knowledge, what are we talking about? Saying you turn your back on the opportunity to be taught by people who have looked at strategy and planning to not only prepare – this is the thing where short-sightedness falls on a lot of people, is they think, it's just about going over and killing babies and blowing people up. No, it's actually about telling people how to live their best life as well, like how to have a plan, how to live a good life in most senses. There's been a lot of people I know that have been involved in armed forces that have come out the other end of it and not been so good. And there's other people like yourself and various other people that I know who've been through Vietnam and other places that were looked after and were treated well and did learn about business and did learn about strategy and did learn about mateship and looking after people and building communities. And so the same principle I used before, mate, when I talked about good and bad in people, is there's been people that I've been involved in mentoring that have gone away and learned stuff, and they've come back and taught me stuff or showed me things that they're learning, and I've added it to my library because I thought, that's cool. Tell me more about that. That's really interesting. Who did you hear this from? That's very wise. And that's what you should be doing. You should be grabbing pockets of information. Like if it's offered up to you, defining your success, like if things are offered up to you and it's not in vain, or it's not just from some old Jono down the road, but you're talking about the integrity of valuable information and it's served up to you, you're a fool if you don't take it. You're a fool. And there's been many people like that I've unfortunately met in my life that have just turned up those opportunities. But you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
That's it. All right. That feels like the place to wrap it up.
It is a good place to wrap it up. But before you do the official, just remember Dr. Melanie Uda. The clock is ticking. Oh, yeah. She is coming. It's going to be incredible. We're very fortunate to have such a powerhouse of institutional knowledge, especially in that form of education. Like we get a lot of people teaching us the pragmatic side, which Melanie is capable of doing. I mean, she's still working with great people like Michael Ellis and Cameron Ford, and she's very, very well entrenched with some people who are high-level trainers. But in her own right, she's also an incredible wellspring of knowledge in the psychological process as well of how dogs learn and how people are learning around their dog learning process as well. So she will be in New South Wales on the 21st and 22nd of February, and in Melbourne on the 28th of February and the 1st of March. So if you'd like to come along, go into the Canine Paradigm discussion group. You can search within there. I've got 2 Eventbrite pages, one for Melbourne, one for New South Wales. If you want to go to either one of those, click the link. If you're confused about where to find it, send me a message. I'll shoot it to you. Like I said, the clock's ticking. We've got just over a month now and she'll be on our shores, and it will be an incredible opportunity, especially for people who are involved in dog training and want to go to that next level of understanding the psychology behind it. Anybody who's done anything with Melanie hasn't been disappointed. I've never, apart from your old mate that you kicked out of the group, but he didn't do anything. All he did was he's just one of those person that just wanted to throw up a road barrier all the way. But in life, you'll get that. But like I'm saying, don't miss the opportunity to meet her in person.
All right. That's it for another episode of the Canine Paradigm. As always, if you like what you hear, like, rate, share, subscribe, do that through whatever subscription service you download us from, and then go somewhere else and do it on another one.
Yeah.
They don't check. You're allowed. If you want to support us, the best way to do that is Patreon. Jump into Patreon. A few bucks a month gets you a giant backlog of information as well as new stuff going forward, but that's the real support of the show.
It's the only support of the show. That's it. That's the one that keeps the bills paid.
That's all that it pays for.
We've got no sponsors. We've just got Patreons. So you can even you can sponsor us through Patreon if you want. If you're just thinking, I've got
give us as much as you like.
I got a lazy hungy.
The other way, buy a t-shirt. Get a t-shirt. Get in the spring. There's links in the show notes. Get in there. You could get yourself a giant wall tapestry or a t-shirt. But if you want to get in touch with us, best way to do that is to jump in the Facebook discussion group. There's lots of cool information happening in there. Or you could shoot us an email. We are info@thecanineparadigm.com. Love you all. Goodbye.